Now let's talk about ACES color space, and here as you can see our render is not looking right. These colors are not right, and that is because if I go into the Houdini Vulkan viewport and let's go back and onto the Pyro Bake volume, and here as you can see we have this color ramp, and these colors, these ramps are actually designed to work with ACES. And right now, by default, Houdini does not uses the ACES rendering to render out your explosion. All of your rendering, it's not going to be used ACES by default. And to actually render our explosion, our these colors accurately, we need to change our these render color setting to ACES. And we can do that by going on to the edit. And here we have the OCIO setting. Let's enable this, and in here as you can see we are using the render working space with the linear rec 709, which is an sRGB color profile, and we need to change this to ACES CG. So let's change this to ACES CG, and now we are rendering with the ACES CG. And we also need to change the view transform because we need to convert our these ACES color back into sRGB, because our monitors, our displays sports in sRGB, which means we need to convert our this original ACES back into sRGB for viewing or for displaying purpose. So on to the view transform, let's change this to ACES 1.0, the STR video. And now with all of these settings set, you can just click apply and accept. Make sure to change them to ACES. Let's apply and hit accept and okay. And here you can see our colors has been changed, and now our colors looks more rich colors. And now if I go inside of the LOPNet in here, and if I were to change this to Karma XPU, and here you can see we have our color displayed accurately, and we are entering them in correct color space. I can go into the material library, and in here let's play around with our this scattering intensity. I'm going to just keep increasing this intensity to my liking. Let's keep increasing this, and maybe let's go into the smoke and let's also play around with its color. I think the color is fine, but we need to adjust the density. I'm going to just continue increasing this density to my liking. And I can go into the scattering, and in here we have the option for the masking, and I can play around with the mask center. I can lower down the mask center value to create a more mask 0.05. And now by adjusting the mask center, I'm basically revealing more of our smoke and hiding my this hardcore scale. I think the value of 0.1 is fine, or default value was 0.2. okay, the value of 0.2 are working fine, and these are the accurate colors. But what actually is ACES? So what we just did, the ACES, if I go into my Google Chrome, and here we have the demonstration of the ACES color profile, and here we have the color primaries. We have all of these color that are actually available. These are all the colors that human eye can see and differentiate between them. For example, if we have two greens, let's say if we have a multiple green value of a leaf of a tree, so all of the greens are not the same. We have different kind of shades in green. And the sRGB, here as you can see we have the sRGB in blue. This sRGB color space only support so much color, so we do not have access to all of our color information. But ACES on the other hand, if you take a look at this rectangle, ACES support all of the color range, all of the color primaries. It is a much wider color space. If I go into the ACES color, and here we have the acescolorspace.com, and in here you can read more about ACES, and here we have the sRGB, And here as you can see we have, if I were to expand this, and in here as you can see we have this color and we have some blown out details, and the colors are not very good looking. And now if we take a look at the ACES CG, and in here we can see that we have color, more rich color, and we do not getting this blown out highlights, and we are preserving all of the colors, and we have different kind of shades of color which are more natural. And in here you can scroll down, and here we can see the color gamut. If I click, and here we have the comparison between different type of color profile. At the very top we have this ACES in red, and here you can see that is the red. And here we have the sRGB that is defined in this bluish color, this cerulean color. sRGB, let me find, and here we have this, that is the sRGB colors. And here you can see inside we are actually limited by these colors. sRGB only support just these kind of shades of the colors, and on the other hand ACES support all of the colors, so it's a much wider color gamut. And here we have another comparison between ACES CG and sRGB, and here we can clearly see the difference, how wide this color gamut is. These are explosion materials, these colors. If we go back, all of these colors are based on ACES, and we need to use the ACES colors for rendering. And in here, let me go back onto my LobNet. In here, if I were to change this to, let's say, OCIO settings, here we have the view transform, and we can also view this view transform. If I were to click on this Karma XPU, where we have this Houdini VK and all of these options, here we have the option to enable the correction toolbar, and right now it's disabled. Let's enable this, and down here we have some new option, and here as you can see we are using the IO option is enabled, which means that we are using the open color. And in here we are using the sRGB display, which means that my monitor, it is an sRGB monitor, so we are converting our ACES color, all of these color gamut. Let me go back, or this ACES color gamut, because our monitor cannot support the ACES. Our monitor does not have the ability to display all of these color. We need a way to convert these ACES colors back into sRGB for displaying, and that's what this view transform is doing. Let me go into the OCIO setting. This view transform is doing, it's looking at the ACES colors and converting them back into the appropriate sRGB value for accurately displaying onto our monitor, because our monitor support sRGB. And in here we can see the view transform. Right now we are using the ACES. I can change this to raw, and here you can see what is the raw values for the ACES, and here we have the ACES. And right now the colors are not accurate because our monitor cannot display the ACES colors, and that is why we have this, some of the blown out details and all of these high information of colors, and we need to convert them back to ACES. So let's click on this ACES 1.0 SDR, which means we are converting this back into sRGB, and I can click on this, and here I have some other option. I can change this to, let's say, Rec 2100, and here you can see the color looks completely different. I can change this to display P3 display, and we have some other option, but I'm going to change this to sRGB display because most of our monitors support sRGB, and right now it is saying untone map. I'm going to just use the ACES color LUT to convert all of our colors into sRGB accurately. That is the ACES, and make sure to enable the ACES color from the OCIO editor setting. And you should always use the ACES CG because it is a much wider color space, and we will going to render out these sequences in ACES. And down here, if you are going to using the ACES, Let me go into the ACES. If you are going to use the ACES, and onto the Karma render setting, I'm going to go into the output picture. I'm going to define the location where I want to store my sequences. And if you are going to write your EXR sequences, these EXR sequences will going to be written in ACES. And I can confirm if I go into the edit and OCIO settings. And in here we have these names and the extension, and I can find if I were going to be using the EXR sequence. And here you can see we have the color space. Sorry, if you are going to write the EXR, we are not going to be rendered in the ACES, but Houdini will use this linear rec 709 to render these colors in the rec 709 format color space. And if you want to render them in the inside of the ACES CG, you need to type the ACES CG in your name. For example, I can go into this location. I'm going to just create some folder wherever I want to store my renders. Let's say I'm going to use this default location, and in here I'm going to type the name, and I'm going to type the name explosion, and anywhere in the name field I just need to type the ACES and the CG, and CG should be written in the lowercase. And now when in the name we have the ACES CG, and now I can type the .exr because I want to write the EXR sequences, and hit accept. And I also need to add the $F, which means that we need to, because we are going to render out the sequences, we need the unique identifier for the frame. So after that, I'm going to say underscore $F, which means the current frame number, and that will be added into our explosion ACES CG and frame number. That way we have the unique name, and we will going to be render out the sequences. Now hit accept. And now that because ACES CG is present in the name, and now if I check into the OCIO setting, and here as you can see we have these pattern. This star means that at the start of the name, so at the start, whatever the start is, I have the start of explosion. And after that, if the name ACES CG is present, right now it is present, Houdini will going to be using this ACES CG color to render out your sequences, which means that these EXR sequence is going to be written in ACES color space. And then we will going to be using our compositing applications such as Photoshop or Adobe Premiere Pro or Nuke, because we are working with these animation sequence. Either you're going to be composite in Nuke or Premiere Pro, After Effects. Both of these, After Effects and Nuke, support the ACES color space. We are going to be converting this back into sRGB color in our compositing application. So make sure to render out your sequences in the ACES color format. You can change this to ACES, or I can go into the edit OCIO setting, and in here I can say if I were to render out my EXR sequences, if I'm going to render EXR sequences, please do not use the linear rec 709. I can just click in here and I can choose, I can say ACES CG, and I can say it accept, which means that now I do not need to say ACES CG. I can just go in here, I can type my name, I can say explosion, and same way I can now say $F, the current frame number for unique identifier, and then the EXR. And now because we are using the EXR sequences and we have set these settings in here that whenever we are going to render out the EXR sequences, please use the ACES CG. Now Houdini will use the ACES as an A rendering color space. So make sure to pay attention to these settings whenever you are going to be working with ACES. So that's how you can render out your explosion in the correct color space.